Hello everybody, welcome back to Woodworking Wisdom. Today we're making a kids kind of play kiosk. So it's going to be, like imagine an ice cream kiosk or a burger van or something like that. So we're going to make a really kind of simple kiosk for kids to play with in the garden. We're going to start off our basic kind of building blocks are going to be an 8x4 pallet and also an 8x4 sheet of OSB. And we're going to cut these and shape them and make a little hatch and we're going to make a really cool kids play area really. So we're looking at the back of the pallet now. We need to get rid of all of these little potential splinters and things. So just any bits like this, we just need to pull them off, get rid of them. Maybe a wire brush might help strip that back a bit quicker. So we're just getting rid of any loose debris on the pallet. These little wire brushes are really good at stripping off those loose bits. And then we just need to sand that in. So you could use your random orbit sander, a rough paper. This is 100 grit on a little sanding block is good enough. That will quite quickly knock back any splinters. Just pay extra attention up on these corners. I just want to get rid of any sharp bits and potential splinters. So we need to go right over the back of this pallet. Don't worry too much about the front face here, but we need to make sure that this back part is all free of splinters. So you need to go over the whole of the back of the pallet and just get rid of any fluffy bits. Make sure it's nice and soft and you're not going to get any splinters from it. So like I say, we've got to deburr or de-splinter the whole of the back of this pallet. I'm just going to quickly do that, but to do that I'm going to put my dust mask on. Okay, so we've got a few cuts to make now. I'm just going to use a couple of these guide rail clamps in our T-slots on the bench here, just to hold this down. I mean, it's sat on there pretty well with its own weight, but just a couple of extra clamps to secure it to the bench is going to help a lot. So we're going to make our first cut, and we're going to cut this with the jigsaw. Now what I want to do is create a corner shape for this kiosk, and this side here we're going to swing around. So we're going to use the thickness of the board and cut that distance from this bit. So the little pillar that holds it together, we've got a 17mm board, so we can come 17mm out from that little bit there, and you may have seen I've just marked that off with a pencil. Now you could use your square to get that line on there really well, and then we're going to use the jigsaw. We're going to offer it up so that the blade sits on that line, which is where we're going to cut. Try and keep it fairly square and just mark off on the edge of the body. We're going to use our Pro Grip clamp to come in to that line, and then we can follow our clamp along and get that distance right all the way along across our planks on our pallet. And we'll do the same the other end. So just aligning to that pencil line and then popping on the Pro Grip. So we've got our Pro Grip clamp in place. Remember, we've got that little offset from the blade to the edge of the tool, and we can just follow this clamp now all the way along, and it's going to cut that little lip which we want all the way along each of these planks. Here we go. So I've put a piece of pine in between the slats on the pallet so that when we cut these planks don't fall down. There's a bit of bridge and support. So we've cut our 6 top or outside face planks. We just need to flip this over now and cut the 2 underneath. So we've cut the top using the jigsaw. We now got 2 struts along the bottom to cut. Now we're going to take this distance here, which is just under 100 mil, and we're going to measure from this corner over here, and I'm just going to put a little pencil mark just under that 100 mil area. Using a square, we're going to bring that line across, and that's our cut line. Good. Same thing on the other side. So we're cutting part of the bottom slat now. I've just used the top one to mark off roughly where we need to cut it, and a little Japanese pull saw. Cool. Now they're the same length. That's all going to fit together nicely when we put it on, attach it to the other pallet. So we've taken this down from the bench now. Everything is a little bit loose, but we're just holding it together with some spring clamps, some one-handed quick grip clamps. And what we need to do now is just screw these 2 pieces together. We're going to just try and miss the nail here. This has been shot with a nail. There's a nail going in around about there, so we're just going to drop below that for our first screw hole, and then imagine the other one here. We've got another nail hole that's coming through here, so we can pop another one again just below, around about there. So we've got a couple of screw holes on the diagonal. We've got a 2 mil drill bit, and just drilling a couple of pilot holes through here and here, and we know we've not hit that nail. And then we've got a couple of 40 mil, and I've just checked, because these pallets can be different pallet to pallet, I've just checked on this that we've got enough thickness here that this screw can go all the way and it's not going to poke out on that back surface. That's really important. And just pull that in till it's flush or just below the surface. And then our spring clamp can come off. And we need to work our way down these planks, get them all fixed together, and then we've got this L shape, which is a lot more stable than just a single sheet. So on our little kiosk that we're making, we've made this L shape now, so it gives it a little bit more stability. What we want is a couple of feet on either end. So we're going to cut this part out, which is going to form part of the hatch, and use that to make the feet. We've got a Japanese pull saw here, and I'm just going to lay that up against the back of that upright strut, and just use that almost as a guide. We are leaving this part here because we're going to use that as a fixing point. We're going to put some OSB board on this. So we're leaving these end bits rather than pull that off with a, a Tommy bar. So this is the piece we just took out the pallet. We want a couple of 16-inch lengths off of this. So I've already put a little pencil mark there. So just mark that off at 16. Going to square that off. And then we want to cut that piece. And then want another piece like that. And these are going to form our 2 feet. So we're going to shape this a little bit and then attach them to the ends of our project. So we're just going to round over these top corners in case someone trips and falls. We're going to have just soften that corner a bit. So we're going to do this one, and just using a tape as something round. Just lining up the edges of the tape to the edges of the board. And then we'll head over to the bandsaw and just trim these off. So we're going to carry on with these 40mm screws. I always offer it up and just think, yep, that's going to go all the way into this piece of timber, but it's not going to come so far that it's poking out here and creates a sharp area. So we're just going to do a couple of screws in here. A bit of a diagonal. Again, just keeping an eye out to look where those nails may be. And that's creating a nice kind of a wider section at the bottom. We haven't made it too long. We don't want to make it a trip hazard, and also knock off these corners. Make sure if anyone does trip and fall that that's not a sharp edge. Same thing on the next one now. We're going to go to the other side and pop the other foot on. So we've measured the front side of our little kiosk, and it's about 50 inches long. So I'm just going to, again, like we did before, pop a little pencil mark, 50 inches, 127 centimeters, and we're going to use the same little trick. We're going to use our jigsaw. We're going to offer it up to our little pencil mark, and then we're going to use our pencil just to mark off the edge of the, where the blade meets our pencil mark. We're marking off on the edge of our the body of the machine. And we can put our Pro clamp up against that line, and we'll do the same on the other side. Okay, so we've got our sheet of OSB, we've got it clamped and on the bench this side, and then we've got a roller support stand and Steph on the other side. Steph's very kindly going to help just support that end in case it jackknifes, because we're going to put a cut down the middle here. We have got support here and here, but there's still, with the weight of the tool, there's always a chance that it could jackknife. So Steph's going to very kindly support that end of the board, and we're just going to cut through. So going to go to the other side and come back this way. We've cut our OSB to side, and again a couple of little spring clamps just holding it in place, really useful. And what we've done is just checked around and make sure everything's fairly square. We're never going to get it spot on, especially with these pallets being a bit out. But yeah, we're going to use a pencil now, and I'm going to come up nice and close to this bottom edge and just draw that line on. Run up this side with the pencil, same along that top face, nice bold mark, and then pencil flat up against there, and we're just going to mark that side as well. Good. Now we're back on the jigsaw. We need to drill a couple of holes, and then we're going to join that up and cut that little aperture window out with the jigsaw. So we've just spaced our bit of OSB up off of the bench a little bit so that our jigsaw can go down its full depth without fouling on the bench. We've also put a couple of pine supports. This bit here is going to be very weak if we were to just cut that straight out. So we're offering a bit of support so that this part doesn't flex. So we need to drill some holes in each of the corners, and then we're going to join them up with our jigsaw. So now we're going to join the dots. We're going to cut this out. Remember, that support was really important. So just in the corner here where we've drilled, I've cut right up into the corner on that bit, but we just need to come back along and trim this, and just check each of your corners, make sure they're all nicely trimmed. And that's what we're going for, a bit more of a sharp corner. And just come around all these corners and do the same. Okay, so that jigsaw's left us with a slightly raggedy edge. So again, little sanding block. We just need to remove any potential splinters. And just soften that edge all the way around. Remember, we're slightly vulnerable now. We just need to be careful not to put too much pressure on this end. And I'm rolling from the top surface onto the side. So we've cut our OSB board and we've got this nice big window here. A little bit out of square down the bottom here. And I think that's in the pallet, but all we need to do is just to pull this one. When we put our screws in, that's going to hold everything nice and square. We've got a slight overhang down in that corner because at rest it's sitting like that. But we just need to put a little bit of a twist on it, and then we can drill our holes, and then once we get the screws in there, everything's going to be nice and square. We've put this, the cut on our OSB, the same level as that slat on the pallet, because we're going to have a shelf that sits on this. We are going to cover the other side as well. This is not a climbing frame. This won't support the weight of people climbing. So we are going to cover this side as well. And you can paint that and decorate it. No window on this side, but that's where all the kind of fun's happening. And you could put shelves and things on the inside on that face. So let's screw this OSB panel down, make sure it's nice and square, and then we can fit this one.
Now that's holding square. We can put in our other screws at our leisure. Just changing the torque setting on the drill so that it doesn't pull in so much on the OSB. It's good. I think that's enough for that side. Let's come over to this side. So I feel like I came up against something hard then, probably a nail. So just dropping down a little.
Okay, so we're going to fit our kind of sill or the bottom part of the serving hatch. We've got quite a nice wide board of this tulip. But you could recycle some of the other boards if you can get them, take them out, join them together, but you want a little bit of width on it. So we've got a nice wide board here, we're lucky. So I'm just going to offer that up to our little hatch and make a couple of pencil marks where the outside of the hatch meets our board. Because we're going to cut almost like a little rebate in this. We're going to round off the corners again. But from that pencil mark we can come straight forward, and then this is going to slot in, and a couple of little support bits here we can screw up from underneath, and then we've got a nice solid sill to serve our teas, coffees, ice creams, whatever it is that we're making here. So we're just going to measure this part here. That's 12.5 centimeters or 125 mil. So on here where we've marked our board, we can mark that off at 125 mil, put a little line, and that's where we need to cut to on the bandsaw. So we've cut our little rebate or recess on the bandsaw. Just doing a little test fit, and we're nice and flush up against the frontage of our little hatch here. But there is a little bit of a gap here, but I'm not too worried because we're going to put some supports in under here and here, and that's going to hold the shelf in place. So we cut a little recess. We want to make another little cut on the bandsaw, so we're using the same trick. We're using a bit of masking tape to give us that nice little quarter of a round or a little radius on the edge. So do that both ends. So we've got quite a wide board here, fairly heavy. I could manage around that corner, but if you'd struggle to keep the weight up, always have someone support on the outside there just to hold the some of the weight. But we're going to swing that around, and we've gone back to our thinner blade, the 1/4 inch blade and the bandsaw, just to come around that tight radius. So parking that there just for a moment, we're going to pop the bandsaw on, just lining it up with that cut there, and just swinging as I feed it. Not too worried about the finish, we can always sand that in. Now repositioning to take the second cut. So we're putting our shelf piece in here, we're bringing it right up to those little corners that we cut. A little bit unstable at the moment, but we're going to put some baton in under here and then screw up through into our little sill. I'm going to get that roughly kind of straight so that we've got our markings of where our battens are going to go, and then we can come off of this edge to get a square and get that nice and flat. So we want a nice square line coming from here, so we're going to use this as our kind of register. So pop the square up against that and then just slide it down until we're on this corner here. Then we can strike that line nice and bold, and we were pretty much bang on the money when we just offered it up. But that just gives us, makes sure that this sill is sitting nice and flat and straight. Now we can screw our batons on. Okay, so that's the kind of bare bones of our little kids kiosk. They can come down here and they can serve their ice creams and things like that. You could put shelves in here, and we're going to put a bit of decoration on this. So we're going to paint the whole thing, and I think maybe a blackboard with a menu on it, maybe some little bottles here as drinks or sauces or ketchup or whatever it is, whatever theme you're going for, whether it's kind of burgers, ice creams, teas and coffees, you can kind of, from this stage, develop it into what you want to make it. Like I say, I think we're going to go for a dual purpose ice cream and burger van, and we can have a blackboard that switches sides. So if you get bored of playing with your ice creams, you can open up a burger van. So like I say, this is the bare bones of our little structure. Decorate it so we can put twinkly lights, a bit of bunting or something like that. So from this stage you can kind of make it your own, make it what you want it to be. A couple of important things to remember. This is a kids play area, so we need to just go around, denib, take away any last splinters, You know, get rid of any kind of sharp bits. Make sure there's no rusty nails sticking through. We need to just make sure all of that's gone. Give it a really good going over. A lot of sanding and you know, blending and stuff. This hard edge on here, we could potentially run a little router over it and just soften all the corners and yeah, and make it your own. Thank you so much for tuning in. We are going to show you a finished picture of this, what it's going to look like. So thanks for joining us today. If you've enjoyed today's project, hit the like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon for more Woodworking Wisdom. Bye bye.